The United States-India Political Action Committee has been extremely active on the Capitol Hill in influencing U.S. policy on U.S. liquefied natural gas exports to strategic allies such as India. Right from helping organize Congressman Ted Poe's hearing on U.S. LNG exports in April 2013, to launching a campaign to spread awareness and solicit support for endorsement of Bill HR 2771 that would expedite LNG exports, the USINPAC's efforts are geared towards facilitating LNG trade between US and India without any restrictions, thus heralding a new era in energy trade between the two largest democracies in the world. Today, we have the pleasure to talk to Congressman Ted Poe, who represents the 2nd Congressional District in Texas and has for long been a strong supporter of United States liquefied natural gas exports to strategic allies such as India. Good evening, Congressman Poe. Thank you for your time. I mentioned in my introduction that you've been a champion for US LNG exports and have identified India as a major trade partner. Can you please speak about the benefits of US-India liquefied natural gas trade from both an Indian and US perspective?
Let's take it from the US perspective. The United States is producing natural gas like never before, and most of it's being produced in Texas. We have more than we can actually ever use in the United States. There's an ice cream company in Texas, and they sell their ice cream. They say, we eat all we can and we sell the rest. Well, that's our philosophy about liquefied natural gas. We want to use all we can and sell the rest, and sell it to our good friends, the Indian community, because India needs energy, can use natural gas, and it benefits both countries. So we want to establish that energy partnership with the two nations.
You initiated and sponsored Bill HR 2771 last July to endorse the removal of DOE oversight on approval of US LNG exports to non-FTA countries. Can you elaborate for our viewers how the passage of this bill could significantly expedite US LNG exports to countries such as India?
There's an old law in the United States that if the United States wants to export natural gas, the company not only has to go through the Federal Energy Regulatory Agency, but they have to go through the Department of Energy to get permission. The Department of Energy now is having to approve these contracts, and it's taken too long. Customers, other countries, will go somewhere else. And the Department of Energy has been very slow, only approving 5 of about 28 permits. So the legislation would cut the Department of Energy out of the approval process, keep it with FERC, and allow FERC to make these decisions, expedite the approval process, make sure everything is done appropriately. But that would be the benefit to exporting the LNG to countries like India. India, like other countries, are not going to wait on the United States forever. They need the energy now. They will look somewhere else unless we get our house in order, expedite selling liquefied natural gas. And so that's what that bill does. It just speeds up the process.
Thank you. Now, considering the ease on sanctions on Iran, which has traditionally been a major LNG provider to India, what do you think would be the impact on India's future long-term imports from the United States?
Well, the situation in Iran, to me, is still something that the United States must be and India must be concerned about. I don't believe the sanctions were a good idea. It wasn't a good idea for the United States, the West, and other freedom-loving countries. But those sanctions have been lifted. We don't know whether Iran will be able to maintain any type of exporting or not. But the United States and people like me who are on the Foreign Affairs Committee, we want India to look to the United States, not to other countries like Iran or Pakistan or anybody else for liquefied natural gas. India needs the energy, and they can't wait on countries like the United States to in their delay process. And I don't blame them for wanting to get energy immediately. But the United States should work closer with India, so India looks to the West, primarily the United States, primarily to Texas, to get that liquefied natural gas. India is the biggest, largest democracy in the world. United States, democracy. And it's good politically and for democracies and for both countries for us to work together rather than with countries that really aren't stable countries, countries who don't see democracy as a benefit to the people. So that's why we hope that India and the United States will work together as opposed to India buying from Iran.
That's a very valid point, sir. But given the geographical distance between US and India, can you speak about the risk and additional cost of transportation of LNG that would definitely come up at some point?
Well, let's talk about the ships. These ships are phenomenal. First of all, the liquefied natural gas is not under pressure, so there's not an explosion problem. Plus, they have all the safety techniques and some that I can't even comprehend in these ships. They have double hulls, for example. The outer hull is 6 feet from the next hull, all for safety reasons. So the ships are quite safe. And shipping overseas through ships is a safe practice. And the cost. Let's talk about the cost on both ends. We can produce liquefied natural gas, put it on a ship, send it to India. India can pay less for it by having it shipped to them than they can get in the surrounding country. And of course, we can make a profit on the front end because we have so much of it. So it's a win for both nations. It's a win for the United States because we can produce it and ship it and sell it very cheaply and still get it to India, and India can take that and buy it cheaper than they could produce it in their own country. And that's why it's a win-win for both nations, and we have those safety ships that can do that.
Mm-hmm. But what do you think are some of the critical challenges you foresee in LNG trade in this win-win situation? And how do you think the two countries can overcome these challenges?
The process of contracts on energy takes a while, but the contracts are usually for 20 years or more. So we're not talking about making some kind of contract for a couple of years. Nations traditionally, when they import energy or sell energy, sign these contracts for a long time, 20 years. So the timing is of the essence on the United States end. We need to approve the process and speed up the process on our end. We have a willing consumer that wants to buy this natural gas, and if we make the contract now, we have partnership for 20 years. If we don't sell, if we don't get this approval of the permits, then India, in its own self-interest, will look somewhere else and then make that contract for 20 years with some other nation. So the United States has an obligation to speed the process, get it all approved, and get on with the partnership of trade of LNG with two nations.
The recent arrest of an Indian diplomat in the U.S. definitely strained Indo-U.S. ties to an extent. How do you think that arrest would impact U.S.-India energy trade in the future?
On the United States end, I don't see it affecting it at all. On India's side, I would hope India, of course India doesn't approve of this arrest. I hope that would not affect the energy trade. If there's some other kind of disagreement or some other kind of solution that India sees in this, I think they should concentrate, U.S. and India should concentrate on that issue of the arrest, but not let it affect a long-term energy relationship between the United States and India. In fact, we hear this comment about the United States is pivoting to the East, to China. Well, I think the United States, if I was in charge, I would say the United States needs to pivot in the region to India for other reasons besides just natural gas. Right now we have a relationship with Pakistan because of Afghanistan and all of those things that we are aware of. But I believe the United States should pivot over toward India, stable country, democracy, see things the same way. We are still concerned about terrorists. India does a wonderful job of trying to stop terrorism in the region. So I would hope this would not affect that pivot to India for the United States.
It's great that you talk about a long-term relationship between US and India. What is exactly a long-term vision for energy trade between US and India?
Well, 20 years is a contract, and I would hope that we would be able to have a contract and a relationship longer than 20 years, not just with LNG, but with other natural resources as well. Even, we have crude oil in the United States, and we have an abundance of that, and there will be a point where we will be able to export crude oil to countries that need it. And what this does, we can make Middle East turmoil, politics, and energy irrelevant. Those countries in the Middle East have had issues for a long time. And if the United States and India can work together, we can hopefully have a strong relationship where politics doesn't interrupt the energy between the two nations.
Great. And lastly, do you have any special message for the United States-India Political Action Committee for our efforts to influence US-India LNG trade?
Well, as you mentioned at the outset, you have had an influence on Congress in the past to the betterment of not just the India Pact, but for better legislation. I would just encourage people to do the American thing, call your member of Congress and tell them what you think about this. Not many people are on the radar thinking about trade, liquefied natural gas. They're talking about other issues. But this is so important. Energy trade, reliable partners is something that we should be talking about. I'd encourage all of your members to just contact members of Congress, come up here to Washington and talk to them. It does make a difference, and what you have to say has, and I think will, influence members of Congress to sign up, get the Department of Energy out of the way, and have these contracts and these permits allowed so that we can continue to be have a strong relationship between two nations.
Thank you for your encouraging words, sir. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure our viewers both in the US and India would significantly benefit from this interview and learn more about US-India LNG trade. Thank you again.
Thank you.